just a bloke in a bar.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to an episode of Bloke in a Bar. And I've got the great man, Lachlan Croker here. How you going, brother?
I'm good, mate. Thanks for having me.
Mate, how's the, you guys went within a couple of games of the grand final this year. How's the body feeling? And also, how would you rate the season for overall?
The body's feeling good now that I'm not playing. I'm glad to be having a spell as most blokes would be. I think Woodsy summed us up as inconsistent when he was on the radio the other day, so he's already sticking the boot into us. But
he's already a media man.
Oh, mate. He'd bag his mum, I reckon, if he ended up against him cash. But, yeah, mate, we were disappointed with the way it ended. Obviously, always happy to play finals, but once you get that far, you always feel like you're a chance of winning the whole thing. But, disappointed to end the way we did against the Roosters. Not a great performance. Obviously, the Jake head knock and the Tolu head knock in the first 5 seconds of that game.
Mental.
Yeah.
Never seen it. I've never, two. Obviously, we've seen one before. I've never seen two in one tackle, two tackle.
Yeah. And two very important players. Yeah. And I automatically went, if we win this, they're not playing next week because they're the stand down. So it was, disappointing. But I think the Penrith-Melbourne final probably gave the competition the respect it deserved. And we probably weren't at that level at this time in our careers as footballers at Manly. But, building for the next few years.
And what's it been like? Because obviously this is now Seib's second year that you've been at under Seib's. What's it been? Has it been quite refreshing, new style of? Because Seib's is, I haven't obviously been under him, but outside looking in and everything I've heard, he is a quite, new age coach is a word that you could use, or heavily science based. I know that sounds like a bit silly, but there are old school coaches, there are new school. What's it like being under Seib's?
Yeah, I think you've nailed it. He's got he's obviously got a teacher background, so he's very teacher oriented with how he talks to the younger guys, especially, and sort of given us three things to remember when we walk out of a meeting, because he sort of likes listening and learning about the working memory and understanding that the boys' brains can only hold so much information before they go out to a session. Whereas Desi, a few years before, you'd be on the edge of your seat the whole video session because you're waiting for him to ask you a question that you got no idea the answer to, and if you don't know, you're getting screamed at. And so it's been very different between sort of changing coaches. And as I said, the younger guys feel so much more comfortable around him because he doesn't yell, he doesn't scream. He's more, very teacher type the way he goes about things. But I think it's been a welcome change for those guys, and the way that kids these days are now, it's most likely going to be a lot more of that in the future.
Yeah, we like to, us older players, we like to romanticise the old school stuff that we dealt with. But I think that the fact that Wayne Bennett and Bellamy have all mellowed since their early days should suggest to you that probably just doesn't work with the next generation at the moment. And I know that the easy thing is to go, oh, that's soft and that's this. It's just different. Like, there's some positives, there's some negatives. I talk about it all the time, but you'll be able to speak about it as well. It's like the positive with young kids coming in now and having more of a say and more being more confident is they'll make the big play in a big game. Whereas I think the old school, you wouldn't make the big play because you'd be too scared to fucking do anything. But what is it like with the new generation?
Yeah, you've nailed it again. Desi used to always talk about being big in those occasions, and it's tough for younger guys to go into those situations and want to throw the long cutout ball to hit the winger and then sort of make an error out of it, and then you're being blamed for the way the game went. And I think that, as I said, the way that the kids are now coming into the sort of squad and stuff and how confident they are, I think that to flourish and to sort of nourish how their confidence grows is definitely that way that you're talking about, and not yelling at them and keeping them on the edge of their seat. Even I loved it when I was coming through again. I really understood Desi, and he always took the piss out of everything and was never serious with. So you just had to be able to understand the way he was going. And a lot of our younger guys just didn't get that because they'd never noticed, never seen it before. So Seib's was doing a really good job with them. And obviously the older guys that remember what Desi was like still have a little bit of that accountability for the younger guys and be able to get into them when it's needed. But it's not the way that footy is anymore.
Yeah, you wouldn't get a reaction. There might be one or two young guys that would be like, oh yeah, I love the old school stuff, but it's just different. Like, they just haven't gone through their life engaging with that type of teaching, and so I think you'd lose more than you'd actually gain by being that old school. Don't get me wrong, I do think there's still, like, people assume then when they hear that there's no tough love. Like, there's still tough love. It's just, I think I think the way it is said is just differently. Like, I think if you actually listen to what Desi's trying to get across and what Siebes is trying to, you'd probably get the same thing. It's just the way the message is being said that is different. Because it's not like the standards are any less. It's just communicated probably a bit easier for the younger fellas. But yeah, this year for you obviously the back end of the year, like to get back into first grade. You started the season at what point did you get injured, and then what point did you come back into the game?
It was round, I think it was 9.
Yep.
Against Canberra. We played Canberra at home. They ended up beating us on the buzzer. And I think it was Josh Papali coming out of yardage. I ended up just eating his shoulder, and it wasn't one of the biggest head knocks that I've had, but I felt funny straight away.
Yep.
I didn't end up getting taken off by the independent doctor or anything. I think I played the next sort of 5 or 6 minutes, and Canberra ended up scoring, and Ches ended up going to our trainer and saying, you need to get him off.
Yeah, okay.
Because I must have not been doing something right.
Yeah.
And the trainer came
Ches
out.
is blowing up at you.
He was looking after me, but he's blowing up. But so the trainer pulled me off, and I ended up coming off, and I passed all the HIA stuff, and the doctor ended up looking at me towards the end and said, "Mate, I don't think that you're right." So thankfully he ruled me out himself, because I was going to go back out.
Yeah, wow, okay.
So having that decision taken out of my hands was
it's good.
Yeah, really.
It's what they're there for, really.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And and then the next sort of day, it just next sort of 2 or 3 days, I just had a long headache that I'd never had before after a head knock, and that was when I sort of thought that this is not normal. And then 12 weeks later, I'm back playing again against Canberra. But yeah, the 12 weeks prior to that were not enjoyable at all.
Yep. And so, do you want to speak about that period, or?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So that happens, and I guess, I had a similar situation where I got a bit of a head knock, and I wasn't out for that long. But it's just it's such a weird. You're almost like fighting with yourself. You're calling yourself soft, but at the same time, you know how serious it is. And it's like you almost wish that you had a physical injury so that you can just be like, all right, is it an ACL? I know, or whatever it is. Like, you don't want an ACL, but you know what I'm saying? It's very clear. But with these kind of injuries, like, as you said, wasn't the biggest head knock you've ever had. You were going to go back out yourself. I guess, what was the mental struggle like for you in those next 12 weeks of trying to find out where to kind of land at?
Yeah, well, there were just so many factors that sort of influenced what I was thinking about and how I was going about things. The soft thing that you spoke about. If someone came up to me and told me they couldn't play because they were dizzy and had a headache, I would have thought they were being a coward.
Yeah.
And then for me to go through that and then have to say that to other guys, that was probably the hardest thing. But then talking to the doc, he was never really concerned about like my brain health and longevity and that sort of stuff. But then you get home and you talk to your missus or you talk to your mum and dad and you say, I'm thinking about playing this weekend, and then they say, well, just be careful, make sure you're right.
Yeah.
So then I'm getting these things from both sides that, don't be scared here, but be concerned. And those things really bothered me and really upset me. But the doc was really good for me. We saw so many specialists and all the migraine physios and all that sort of stuff. So I was always in really safe hands there. And I guess once I did start to come back and play, I just had this sort of nagging in the back of my head that I was just being greedy with sort of my life after footy and people that I was accountable to, so my partner and if we have kids in the future and all that sort of stuff. And that was something that was probably the hardest thing for me to get over, was once I was going back playing and once I'd finish a game and I'd sit at the end, like in the change room at the end of the game going, should I have done that? And I'm getting better with that now. And prior to that, I always knew that it was part of the game, and injuries especially, but I would have taken 3 shoulders over going through that sort of 12 weeks that I went through, just because I knew that I would be fine after footy. And, I guess you never really know till you know, and obviously you hear all the CTE stuff and all that spoken about, and it scares the living daylights out of you. But to be back playing, and it's nice to. I only played, I think, probably 9 or 10 games towards the back end of the year, not even, and then knew that I was getting a break. So to get those games out of the way and play that to the best of my ability, and then know that I was having the best part of 6 months to play again, sort of made me more comfortable in my decision. Yeah,
it's just such a unique situation we find ourselves in. I think the real positive is that the game's taking steps. Like, it's the best era for safety to ever play the game in, So if there are players that have played NRL in the past eras that have, gotten through life and not had much issues, then you would assume that this generation would have much less issues than the past one. You'd have to assume. So anyway, the decision to come back. So you came back and played reserve grade?
Yeah, I played the first 20 minutes of reserve grade out at, I think it was Wentworth Park. which was a humbling experience for me. We ended up getting thumped by the Roosters, it was, and I was only supposed to play the 25 minutes, and we ended up losing a half. And I remember the coach on the sideline looked across to me, and I just went, geez, I hope he doesn't put me back on here, because we were getting thumped. It was rain,
really?
and the wind was, it was
Just
not
a shit day.
I was just happy to get me time and get out of it.
Yeah,
But thankfully I didn't have to go back on, and it was exciting to be back playing, but there was just so much going through my head before that game, in the game, when I should be thinking about footy, I'm thinking about how I'm feeling. And
Yeah.
because there were times in that 12 weeks that I'd wake up during the night to go to the bathroom or whatever, and the first thing I'd think about is, do I feel funny, or do I feel dizzy, or
Far out.
do I have a headache? And
Yeah.
it was just so consuming for that whole period of time.
It's just like a weight on your shoulders, really. Like just carrying an extra ball on your shoulder, just going, you almost just like wish it wasn't there,
Yeah, absolutely.
And because it's so serious as well. Again, if you have a shoulder injury on your shoulder, you go, mate, like once it's part of this, you're good to go.
Yeah.
I guess, what about the decision to actually come back? Like that would have been, to actually go, yep, I'm in. Because I'm sure there probably would have been some false starts along the way.
Yeah, definitely. There was early on, especially because I didn't obviously comprehend that these things could take such a long time. So there was, I think the first sort of 2 or 3 weeks after the stand down that I could come back and play, we got to probably the main session of that week thinking I was a chance of playing.
Yep.
And then we get to the session, I go, mate, I'm no good. I can't do this. And that was sort of 2 or 3 weeks in a row, and that was making me feel worse than if they just said, have 3 weeks off, don't come back until
Yep.
So leading into every game, I was getting close to playing, and then I'd start thinking, should I be doing this? I feel not right, all that sort of stuff. So I guess once we made the decision to go back, it was off the back of sort of 3 or 4 weeks of symptoms and stuff plateauing. So there was nothing getting worse when I was running or training or getting off the ground or rolling around and that sort of stuff. So we penciled that in probably 2 weeks out. So they gave me a few weeks to get ready for it and roll into it. And then to be able to play, I think the boys played Roosters that week at Allianz. So it was a big game for them. And then for Seibs to say, I think it's best if we just give you a 25 minutes in reserve grade away from the lights, just go get out what you got to get out and feel good within yourself, was something that at the time I hated, because you never want to see someone else wearing your jersey. But looking back on it now, I'm glad that it went that way, because anything could have happened in that game, and then I could have been the reason that we didn't, so.
And it was a Roosters, wasn't it? So it's not like it's a fucking huge pack, big, intense game.
Yes.
Roosters play a very specific style of footy. So you play that 25 minutes. Did you still have doubts though, even after that though?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And what was that next week like for you?
I think the next week for me, I remember speaking to my missus about it, going, I need you and everyone around me just to be positive about what's going on.
Yeah.
I've made this decision with people who are more qualified than you and I.
Yeah.
We just need to buy into what's about to happen, and we go through with it. I trained that whole week as normal, and I felt pretty good. So I wasn't feeling terrible going into the game. And then we ended up playing against Canberra again. So 13 weeks earlier was Papali again, so I had to tackle him again the first game back. So that was it was sitting in the back of my head, but it's, as I said before, with the doc and seeing so many specialists, and I spoke to so many guys within footy that had a similar thing. So I spoke to Luke Keary quite a lot, who was really good. He ended up reaching out to me and just sort of talking me through what he went through and telling me the sort of timeline around his stuff. I spoke to Jakey Gordon from the Wallabies. He had a similar issue that lasted sort of 9 to 10 months, I think he was saying.
Wow.
And that was that almost scared me more than being good for me, just hearing how long his symptoms and stuff went for. But he said, mate, one day you'll wake up and you'll feel normal.
Okay.
And so I just held on to that for as long as I could, that one day this is going to be gone, I'm going to be fine, and I'm off.
Yep. And so then when you get named and you're going to play, and you put back on that, the Manly jersey in first grade, obviously mixed emotions. You would have been super nervous, I'm assuming, but also just to get the jersey back,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was a super proud moment. I think one of the things that I've always held throughout my career is that I never want to see someone else wearing the jersey that I feel like is not mine, but the jersey that I want to be playing in. And, to see Jakey Simpkin came in, did a really good job, and was obviously playing in my position. Then we had Gordy, who was playing really good footy as well. And the whole time I was even thinking, do I get this spot? Is this my jersey?
Yeah.
Do I get this back? So, to have that back and to be able to play down in Canberra in front of a lot of my family, who are all still down there against the team that I debuted for, was sort of a storyline in itself, I guess. And once you get the jersey back, then I'm thinking I'm not giving this away again. So that's just where every footballer will be the same.
Yeah,
and you
absolutely.
you roll on.
There's this weird kind of, it's so, like footy squads are so weird because you're mates with them, and like you go to battle together, you bleed together, but there's this weird like. I mean, for me anyway, it's almost a jealousy when you see them wearing your jersey because it's like, that's, I want that. That's mine. Footy squads is weird because they're your mates too. So it's just this weird relationship. So you play that game and like, what do you reckon? At what point do you reckon you went into a game and you didn't even think about it? Are you there yet, you reckon?
I would have said probably, I don't know who we played after Canberra, but it was probably the week after that. I remember it being a sort of 2 or 3 weeks of getting into the game, and then I found myself thinking about the game and not about how I was feeling.
Yeah, okay.
And that's when I realised that I'm starting to get over the hump and start to be a footballer again. And that was when I realised that I'm past the yuck that we've gone through. Yep. And now we're sort of starting to roll in and play a bit of footy again.
Have you experienced any other long-term injuries before?
Yeah, I've done 3 ACLs and I've had 2 rotator cuffs. So
holy shit, bro!
Yeah. So when I say I'd rather have a shoulder and a knee,
you can genuinely say that you would rather a shoulder and a knee. Because I was about to say, like, again though, the strange thing about this situation is that like, when people talk about the first time I did my ACL, I learned so much about myself. And so you learn how to deal with a physical injury. The tough thing about this situation was it's a very unique injury. It's not like an ACL injury. It's so, vague. You don't really know what's happening. But then this year, so you get back into the side, you get your fitness back again, and you guys make a real push towards, second week of the finals. But walk us through the first week of the finals. How were you feeling? Were you confident against the Dogs? I know, you'd already beaten them quite handedly, but finals footy is a different kettle of fish. Yeah, absolutely. And probably that week that we played them, 2 weeks prior, we played really well and they didn't play great. So that psychologically was probably not good for us going into that final. Obviously, we didn't take them lightly or anything of that nature, but once you come off a win like that and you go back to the same place, you play the exact same team, you sort of psychologically think that this is likely to happen again. But the way they played that second game was so much different to the way they played the first game. Like a different side.
Yeah. So we were, I don't know what the possession was like or what the percentage of our ball in our half was, but the whole first half felt like we were chasing our tail, and then kick out, pick it up and drag, and their whole back five, 15 metres back every carry, and our middle was having to charge 40 metres back to get a carry that's what semi-final football is, and the refs allowed the game to flow, and we found ourselves playing longer periods of balling play than what we were used to, and I think that game for us was really good leading into the Roosters because they're obviously a very good football team and played a lot of semi-final football where the ball is in play and a lot of high pressure situations, and obviously the way that game went was the way it went, but the Dogs game was really good for us as a team to be able to hang in, which we hadn't probably done all year, hang in a game till the very end and then run away with it thanks to Tolu's unbelievable try. So
were you the one that jumped out of dummy half and gave it to DCE or Tommy, or was it DCE that jumped out and gave it to Tommy in that last play? Oh no, that was supposed to be last tackle. Yeah, okay.
So I was at dummy half and I passed to the chairs and I saw the inside pressure and go, we're in trouble here.
Yeah, okay.
We made 30 metres on that set.
Yep.
And he threw it back inside a turbo and absolutely nothing was happening.
Yep.
And then so I don't think people understand the gravity of that situation. That was last tackle of our set.
Yes. And you'd been bashed pretty much, like dominated in the ruck at the very least.
Yeah, and then for Tolu to score a try like that, I love watching how he moves and how he
reminds me of the Pearl when he gets going, just across the lot, like the field, so quick. So it looks so effortless, and so smooth.
Yeah.
But oh man, the guts of DCE to go, you know what, we're running it out of our own end with Tommy in the middle, and also like technically it was the wrong play because it didn't work. Tommy had to go out, break tackles, go out, pass it. When Colin makes that break, you just going, fuck. Thank God.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah. And he was cool as a cucumber, was like nothing happened. He's
so good. So good. So he scores, you win that game. Heading into the Roosters game, how did you feel? Were you, because like sometimes when you have a close win like that and you probably don't play your best footy, you can lose a bit of confidence. Did you guys were like, no, we're still here. We're still good here. We just got to tweak a few things.
Yeah, there was a bit of that, but I think it was more, did probably more good for us than bad because we hadn't been in a game like that where we had been bashed but not blown away. So to be able to hang in there and win late was something that we hadn't done all year. So to know that we could do it leading into the sort of potentially the biggest 3 games of the year if we keep winning was really good for us. And we spoke about it during the week that all we need to do is give ourselves a chance in finals football. Anything can happen, which you saw. So,
yeah, just the opposite.
Yeah. So I think it was good for us.
Where do you reckon you'll need to improve to go deeper next year?
I think probably defensively we haven't been great. Obviously we score a lot of points and we can score a lot of points, which has never been our issue. But you don't want to be winning games 36-30.
Yeah.
So I think for us as a collective, it's not just our edges, even though there's obviously stuff we can fix up on both our edges. It's probably our middle that can help them. And I think coming out of yardage, we gave away so many yardage penalties, and we're really disappointed in that side of the ball. So I think for us, it's a big preseason going into that, and I think trying to find the line with us at training at the moment is being friends and training to make each other better.
Yeah.
So I think for us, that's the sort of next step. And if we're serious about us as footballers, the next 2 years are genuine. It's probably the best opportunity we've had to win a competition or go deep in a competition that I've been there for anyway. So I guess that the next 2 years are big years for us, and that's what we need to do.
I guess the good thing about the squad now is like you are a really tight-knit squad, like friendship-wise, and that gives you a really good foundation to take that next step of holding each other accountable at training. Sometimes the hardest thing when you aren't close, you don't feel like you have that relationship to be able to say certain things. And it sounds like you are quite close. Now it's that next step of like, okay, well, if we're close enough, we need to test that relationship by saying, mate, what you did here was fucking shit. Like, what's going on here? I'm excited. I'm excited for Manly. And you know what? I love the way you guys play. Like, it's a unique style. Was that something that took a bit to adjust to under Seibold, that willingness to just out of your own end spread it, or is that more of a DCE thing?
Nah, I think we had a little bit of that when Desi was around, but I think the way that Ches plays is there's obviously that, like, there's not a lot that scares him, and he's done so much in the game for so long that there's no real sort of concern for consequences if something does go wrong. And I think for us as a team to get better, that off the back of that, we need to be able to defend when that goes wrong, which we weren't great at doing. But the speed of our outside backs and Turbo playing fullback, it's to be able to move the ball in out of our own end. And we scored so many tries where I was standing on the 30-metre line and guys run to the post scoring where I didn't have to chase the play.
I think you're number one, actually. We did the review recently. I'm pretty sure you guys were number one.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Scoring out of your own end.
Me and Jake just stand there halfway and pat each other on the back.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Now, we've got a segment brought to you by Grumpy Coffee, mate. And I ask all the guests this. What makes you grumpy and what turns your frown upside down?
The thing that makes me the grumpiest is probably an outside back error coming out of yardage. I love all my outside backs, but that kills me. Or a 7-tackle set from a half that runs straight back to 3 men and doesn't make a tackle the whole next 7 tackles. The thing that makes me happiest, my missus would want me to say her. She's very close, but I think anytime Turbo gets the ball in open space like that Kangaroos game, that's
that turns your frown upside down?
That turns your frown upside down.
That's great. That's great. Love that. Mate, as a young fella, so obviously you were born in Goulburn.
Yep, correct.
Born in Goulburn. Played for the Crookwell Green Devils. Was that from a very, very young age?
Yeah, as long as I can remember. We played, all my brothers, my dad played there. Dad grew up in Crookwell, town of 2,500 people, never left.
Yeah, wow.
Still there. So it's...
Oh, the old man's still back in...
Yep.
So what did you say, 2,500 people?
Yep. Yeah, so...
Is it a beautiful drive out there?
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah. It's, I love the joint, but once you get away from it and you get into big city living, you get back there, it's just so quiet. And when I was a kid, you'd walk around town and every person you saw, you knew who they were. And, I guess the town's growing now, and that's starting to change a little bit with more people coming out there. And obviously, I haven't been back there for...
Also, it's a growing town.
Not so much, but it's bigger than what it was then.
Okay,
and
cool.
Obviously, not being back there consistently for the last 7 years, it's noticed things starting to change. And I love that football club and played there till under 15s. And then in most of those small towns, young guys start working and can't make training, and we end up running out of numbers. And I moved to the Bungendore Tigers for a year, played under 16s there, and we first started playing Friday nights. So
how far away was that from where you live?
About an hour. So myself and a couple of the boys from Crookwell would sort of drive over. Dad would drive us over, and Dad was always sick for footy, and took us out there and did that. And then once that folded after 16s, I ended up playing under 18s for Goulburn. won the comp that year, and I was really lucky with the
Yep.
junior career I had growing up, and made so many really good friends, and still got friends now. That
Yep. How long was the drive to Goulburn?
from home it was about 40.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
so I
not too bad.
went to school in there for year 7 to 12, and
Oh, did you board there or?
No. So I remember we catch the bus at 7 o'clock in the morning, and it's freezing out there.
Oh,
and our
mate.
bus was old as, and yeah. It was
Wow.
tough.
So you went, did you say year 7 to year 12, you went to school there? And I guess like growing up, did you stand out in your grade or you just did it because you loved it? Like what was the, I guess, purpose behind playing footy?
I loved it first and foremost. I played rugby union on Saturday, league on Friday, Sunday, and I would have played 3 games every weekend if I could for the whole time I was there. And I wasn't the worst footballer out there, and I was lucky enough to get picked up by 16s Harold Bats in Canberra, so that sort of made me give cricket away, which I was sort of into, sort of not really. And then once I sort of dove into footy and really enjoyed travelling over to Canberra and training with guys that I'd played against that were the best out of their respective teams was something that was really cool. And to be able to play my first sort of bit of rep footy was something that kick-started I already had a love and knew that I wanted to play NRL in first grade and stuff, but when you're a kid, it just sort of just seems like a pipe dream because it's
so far away.
Yeah, and then once you get into you see the emblem on your chest, and then you think this might be a chance of happening.
Did any people from your town ever play NRL before?
No, so my uncle's Jason. He grew up with Dad. Played 300 and something games.
So a few.
Jared's not related, but he played 300 and something games for Canberra, and I got 1. So there's about 660 games between us.
Yeah, exactly. So are they from the small town your dad's from though?
Yeah. So Jason grew up with Dad. Jason's dad's brother, and Jared's from Goulburn, so he's
just down the road, kind
close
of thing.
enough to
say
cousins,
that it's from
but we're not cousins. So someone's jumped the fence somewhere, I think.
Oh, that's good. You can put that down on the ground too if you want. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So we did a couple of years ago. We did the country tour for Bloke, and I'd grown up in Mudgeerbar, which is like I grew up on a farm-ish, had a horse and that, but it's close to the beach, so it's not really country. Even though we always joke on my show that I'm a country boy, but when we went on the country tour, like it just hit me how beautiful the countryside is in Australia. And just those small towns like that you go out to, like I know Armidale's a much bigger town than probably what you grew up in, but the countryside like in Australia, it's a nice drive. It's a bloody nice drive. Could you ever see yourself going back there, do you think, or just too quiet?
Yeah, not back there specifically because it is probably too quiet and too cold. But I can't see my partner and I staying in Sydney for
long period.
For the long time.
Yeah.
I would love to stay in footy somehow, and obviously there's a lot of teams in Sydney, so we don't have any idea what the future looks like for us at the moment, and that's scares the living daylights out of me. But I'm assuming that will be somewhere quieter than Sydney, but hopefully somewhere warmer than Crookville.
Yeah, I'm feeling you, bro, because like I'm obviously down here for work, but if I get to a point where I don't have to be in Sydney, I'll move back to the Gold Coast. I think the Gold Coast is the best in my opinion. Country Gold Coast, obviously, not the city, mate. So you make that rep side. Do you remember the conversation? Because like that, obviously your debut, your NRL debut was the biggest day of your footy career usually. But geez, that moment where you put on that, like you first get the call, like, oh my God, I'm going to be associated with the Canberra Raiders. Like that is a huge deal for a young fella.
Yeah, definitely. I think back then your name was on a website. So the website released the list of guys that were selected in the squad. And I was lucky enough that my under-18s coach at the time was one of not an assistant coach, but just affiliated with the coaching system at the time. And looking back on it now, the only reason I probably did get picked early on is because I was so fit. Obviously, I was 70 kilos ringing wet.
Yeah.
And all I got told the whole time leading into it was just be fit. And then once I got into that bigger pond and going back to being a small fish, then I sort of realised that I'm not as good as I was when I was playing for Crookville against kids that aren't playing anymore. So I ended up missing the first game of that season, the 8-game season or whatever it was, just because I didn't get picked, and which was fair enough. I wasn't playing well enough or training well enough. And the second week they ended up I was being a chance of being told I could be released from the squad to just go back and go to school or whatever it was. The coach that was my 18s coach at the time said just find a way to keep him. We'll work something out.
Yeah.
And the second week our centre got injured and I ended up playing centre.
No
I played centre the rest of that year and ended up getting best and fairest for the juniors or whatever it was.
Yeah, wow. It's centre.
Yeah.
So you can tell your outside backs, boys, I've been there. I've been there and done it.
Don't worry. So, yeah, lucky enough to stay in it somehow and ended up getting that award and then signed a deal for 18s. Sort of mucked around in the halves a little bit, but wasn't killing it like the rest of the competition was. And somehow I ended up staying in that and ended up being lucky enough to get best and fairest both years of that.
Yeah, wow.
So
in the halves?
In the halves, yeah.
Cool.
So, yeah, I could have been gone after that first week, but
wow.
There's so many sliding doors moments.
Yeah.
With my career especially, but every career.
Doesn't matter how good you are, there are luck sometimes. Like, I mean, even Latrell Mitchell got looked over when he was coming through the grade. Like, Latrell Mitchell, like, all of the natural talent in the world, you look at him and you go, bro, any club's going to want him. He got looked over. There's so many, like, it just takes one person to back you or someone just to say, give this young kid a try. And it's, as you said, like, it's just one decision. Like, it was your assistant coach, wasn't it? If he doesn't say that, just put that word in for you and just like, please, just give him a crack. Who knows? Who knows? Okay, so you get best and fairest 2 years in a row for under 18s 16s, Raiders, 16s and then 18s.
Yep.
So you would have been playing a year up then in 18s. And is that when the Raiders came to you and said, we'd love to give you a contract for our first grade squad?
Yep. I've been so fortunate with my deals and especially early on in my career where I finished my last HSC exam. The next day I started training with first grade. So I've never had to work a job in my life. Just early on I had everything given to me, which probably didn't put me in good stead for dealing with the later part of it. But yeah, so the next day drove to Canberra, lived with Nen and Pop for the first 6 months of being down there till I found some mates to move into a place together. And trained with first grade straight away up until probably 6 weeks after Christmas, where just the load and dealing with first grade sort of got to me a little bit, and they said just go back and have a few weeks at under 20s and play the comp out there. And I played most of that year in 20s, and then next year ended up debuting, played the first game, and didn't play the rest of that year or the year after, and ended up getting moved on.
So take us back to that day. One of the first sessions when you do get called into first grade, because that's such a daunting experience as a teenager. Like you would have seen these blokes on TV, and they're just so big, and you're like, I'm never going to be able to be as big as these blokes. Like I'll never forget a preseason trial we had in my first year where I was in the under 19s, and I think we walked past the Dragons players, and like it was the first grade trial, and I just looked at them and go, I'll never be that big. Like I'll never be as big as those blokes. I'll never be as like they looked like larger than normal humans. What was the first experience or at least an experience you can remember in the first grade squad training where you were just like, wow, this is intense?
Well, I still don't look like them now for starters, but I think early on we used to do a session out at Mount Stromlo where you used to run 1K time trials. So no boots, no footy, just take your joggers and run these track runs. And we ended up getting to 5. So we do 5 1Ks, whatever the rest was in between. And I remember getting out there and running alongside guys like Blake Austin at the time was killing it. Aiden Caesar was out there, Josh Papali, like those sort of guys, and looking around. And because I was so young, I had no one else there that was my age. So I was sort of thrown in, and not having a lot of mates that were even the year above me was really difficult. And getting into edge on edge stuff and scrimmages, and you got Josh Papali was playing back row at the time, so he's like I was submitted, I was supposed to tackle. And as you said, I was nowhere near physically capable of playing in that competition or even being around those guys. So, I guess just looking back on that, and the guys that look after you, like Lachlan Croker and Blake Austin, Aiden Caesar, were guys that really sort of took me under their wing and just sort of made me feel comfortable in having someone to talk to and going out for lunch and that sort of stuff. And I guess looking back on that now, as an older guy, you try to be that for someone else somewhere along the line to be comfortable in the new surroundings. Yep.
And so you make your debut in 2016. Was that round 1, did you say?
That was round 2. So round 1, Blake and Aiden were both playing. Sammy Williams and I were playing reserve grade at the time, and Blake broke his cheekbone, and C's might have done a shoulder or something. And Sticky came into me we were doing weights during the week, and he said, "Are you ready?" And I said, "Yeah, obviously."
Yeah.
Nowhere near it.
Yeah.
They ended up naming me at the start of the week to play that game. So I got to, the media stuff, and I got to tell my family and all my friends from the start of the week. So I wasn't keeping a secret the whole time. And that whole week was really special. We had a lunch to sort of celebrate my debut, and the whole team came, my family came, presented me my jersey and everything. So it was a really special week for a club that I'd supported my whole life. I remember sitting in that stadium, freezing my ass off, watching Toots play for, 20 or 16 years.
Yeah, wow.
So to be able to do that for that club and to be able to wear the number 6, not on an extended bench or anything, was it was something really cool. And running out to the Raiders theme song that was part of my childhood.
Was this is prior to the Viking clap, or
Yeah, it was
prior to the Viking clap?
Yeah.
So what do you remember from your debut? Is it like in the dressing rooms looking across, going, "Oh my God, I'm actually here"? Is it on the field? What do you remember?
I remember I was trying to act really cool and like it wasn't a big deal, but I was freaking out. And we played the Roosters that game, and I felt somewhat better because the halves on the other team were both young as well. The halves were Jackson Hastings and Jay Nicarima, and Latrell was playing fullback. Yep. So these 3 guys I'd played a bit of footy against growing up, so I wasn't exactly coming up against
unknown,
Cooper Cronk and Billy Slater and those type of guys.
Yep. Well, you didn't really know what the experience was going to be like.
But funnily enough, Latrell, if you watch any of his highlights, the first NRL try he scored is over the top of me. So I see that very often, which is not a great reminder. But I ended up playing 35 minutes of that game, and I subluxed my shoulder. I had a Rico the year before.
Oh, really? So
that was the first episode I'd had post Rico. That then once I felt the sublux, I went, my shoulder's gone again.
Yeah.
So I ended up going off, getting assessed, and was still strong. Everything was back in this, whatever. And
so for people listening, sublux is a dislocation that comes out and goes back in the ball on your shoulder.
Yeah. So it was, it was fine. The physio said you're fine to go back on. The way the game went, I didn't end up getting back on, but Sammy Williams ended up kicking a field goal to win by 1. So it was a very bittersweet day by the end of it. But looking back on it and reflecting on the week leading up to it, and even just my family and especially my old man being able to, see his brother's a legend of that club, and then to see his son be able to play for the club was something that I'm really proud of and still hold very fond.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think, like, if my brother was a legend of a club and my son got to play for that club, I'd be, mate, I don't know. I couldn't put into words how happy I'd be.
Yeah.
So for your father to be able to see that. So you play that one game, but then do you get scans and they go, you need a Rico, or what happens there?
No, I ended up, I don't even think I had a scan after that, but I ended up, Sticky ended up saying, "Man, I'm not playing you next week. You're going to play reserve grade."
Okay.
And then ended up playing reserve grade the rest of that year and the following year. So,
did he communicate with you kind of like what you needed to, or was it pretty harsh, kind of like you're not playing next week kind of thing?
I think it was phrased as I don't know if he was looking after my shoulder or looking after whatever, but he said you can either not play at all because you're not playing first grade, and I'll give you the week off, or you can play reserve grade.
Okay.
And I took that as, well, I'm not a cat. I'm playing football somewhere or another. I'll play reserve grade then. And I don't know if that ended up hurting me in the long run. Maybe that I decided I was going to play reserve grade instead of having the week off and potentially playing first grade the week after.
Okay.
But I never played another first grade game there. Next 2 years were tough, being in that position and knowing that it was probably likely that I wasn't going to play first grade there again. And then towards the back end of that last year, when I realised that I need to find another club, was a tough pill to swallow.
Do you feel that it was because you could do more off the field and become more professional, or do you just one of those situations where you just weren't physically and mentally probably ready, no matter how hard you worked?
It's probably a bit of both. I look at some of the kids now, and they were younger than me playing now, and I go, I don't know how you're playing the way that you're playing, because I was so far off what they are now.
Yep.
It's I'm like watching Lockie Galvin and guys control a team and run I could never do that. So to look back on it now, for me to say I'm ready, I was always going to say it, but it wasn't the smartest thing that I've ever done, and I'm glad that I wasn't sort of thrown into it the back end of those 2 years to sort of deal with playing first grade and that sort of stuff. But it was it wasn't an easy thing for me to deal with,
because like you get best and fairest like 16s, 18s. Like all the evidence would suggest that you are kind of ready, because that's the natural progression. But everyone's journey is different though as well at the same time. Like you look at a guy like Cody Walker, didn't debut till 26. Were you going well in reserve grade, or were you still kind of just wasn't working for you, just wasn't clicking?
I wasn't lighting the world on fire by any means. I think once, like where I grew up playing footy, it was like, that old PlayStation game you used to play where you run to the corner and you run around. Like, that was the type of footy that we were playing coming up and going through juniors. And once I got to 16s and 18s and sort of tried to get the coaching into me of how to play structures and stuff, it wasn't as I obviously didn't find it as easy as what I was doing back at local footy, which obviously makes sense. But and then the next sort of 2 years, it just was really hard to put all that I've learned into practice, and now with guys that are older than me and tell them what to do and what I need from them and that sort of stuff. It just didn't work. And it's as like sliding doors moments end up where I am now. It's not even playing half.
Yeah.
It's
So those 2 years you kind of grafting away. Like, were there a lot of clubs interested, or was it one of those things where how did that process of the Raiders basically saying to you, look, mate, we're not interested, go to then I'm going to go to Manly?
So halfway through, it must have been 2017 maybe, when I realised that this is probably coming to an end down here, that I need to move on. I remember calling my manager saying we need to find somewhere else to sort of look for next year. We looked around, and there's all this sort of stuff going on behind closed doors with coaches here, coaches other clubs, and all that sort of stuff. And I ended up I had a meeting with Penrith, which ended up falling through. And then I ended up having a meeting with Manly early on, and that ended up falling through too, sort of 5 or 6 weeks later. And then got to the back end of the year, had nothing. The season had finished, went to the presentation night. My name's on the screen for departing players, and like, conversations that I hadn't had with players yet that I was leaving, and all that sort of stuff. So that was really tough. And then I remember going into that off season thinking I'm going to have to go play Q Cup somewhere, work a job, bust my ass, find a way to get an NRL contract somewhere. And then looking at the timeline of that, that's potentially taken me 2 to 3 years for all that sort of stuff to happen, and my head was falling off. And I remember my manager called me and he said, mate, Trent Battle, he's keen, let's get it done. Ended up signing a 1 year deal there for 60 grand or whatever the minimum was. The deal I signed in Canberra when I was 18, 19, 20 was more money than I was on my first 3 years at Canberra when I was actually at Manly when I was playing first grade.
Wow.
So I was so lucky coming out of school with the contract and faith that everyone put in me, and then to not be able to fulfill that was obviously disappointing for myself, but I'm sure the club was not happy about it either.
Well, it's such if you get a big contract out of school, the implication behind that contract is you're basically the next up, and there's a lot of pressure with that. And also, like, everyone else in the squad knows it. They don't necessarily know how much money you're on, but they know you're on a pretty decent wicket for a kid out of school. So the expectation is super high, like super high within the internal walls of the squad. Whereas like someone, for example, like myself, that just came in on a minimum contract, did a little army camp, then was, like brought in randomly. There's pressure, but nowhere near the amount of pressure is like we had a guy come through at the Broncos. I won't say his name because he didn't end up playing, first grade. But he was kind of similar to yourself. Like, he was on a good wicket. He was a half, and the expectation was he was the next big thing, and it just didn't work out. And it's just a lot of pressure for a young fella.
Absolutely.
Yes, I can only imagine how much that kind of plays with your head.
Well, I expected it. I just expected the progression to take place.
Yeah.
And once it didn't start happening, that's when I went, this could all be over. And it definitely wasn't that I wasn't training properly, or it just didn't happen the way that I thought it was going to happen.
Yeah.
But as a young guy, I've said it a few times, with the last name, like my progression through the grades and that, I thought I was going to be at Canberra I was going to play 300 games and I was going to captain the club and never leave.
Yeah.
I love Canberra. For where I grew up from, to go to Canberra was eye-opening, and raise a family here. And then when it didn't happen, obviously it was never going to happen like that, but just me thinking that it was going to happen like that, and then my whole world comes crashing down. To then be given a lifeline by Manly, to go and sign up there on a development deal or whatever it was, and that whole off season, I remember training with Blake Austin, and my day one time trial was my fastest time trial over the whole preseason.
No way.
So I remember, best nick I've ever been in, and just went, this, like, I'm moving my missus to Sydney where everything's changing because of me. There's going to be no option for this not work other than the club not wanting me to be there. But I'm not going to give them a reason to say no. Yeah.
So like basically, if your missus is moving there, you're making this huge decision. The last thing you want to do is go, could have I trained a bit harder? Like, that's the last thing you want to do. So you rock up the fastest time. You must have been training your ass off.
Yeah.
Your absolute ass off. Okay. So, but I mean, from a Manly perspective, seeing that, they would have been like, wow, this, I can't express enough. Like, you try to express it to a young fella, and look, I get it. When I was young, I didn't listen to anyone either. So like, I'm not trying to pretend like I was any different, but fitness is the strongest message you can send to a coach in a club, because it's the hardest thing. It's the most honest thing, fitness. You can't cheat it. Whereas like in the weights room or in wrestling, you can have a natural ability to be super strong. you can't cheat fitness. It's the fucking toughest thing.
Yep.
So I guess, was the feedback quite positive from Manly seeing you in that good nick, or did it take quite a while to get the kind of recognition you need?
That's another slight, like, originally, so first that we did 3 2Ks was our day one training session, and I'd heard that Ches was the fittest there.
Yeah.
So my first 2K, I sat behind him the whole way, and then the last 150 metres popped out and flew around him.
Yes.
And the next one did the same thing, and I remember we were talking about it a few years later, and I was sort of bagging him for me beating him, and he goes, "It's funny you should say that because I didn't even know who you were." I said, "No, fair enough." But that pre-season was there was so much going on. So pretty much it was Blake Green was there at the time. He wanted to leave. He ended up going to the Warriors, I think. And then once he left, it was only sort of me and Jackson Hastings that was still left there. And a guy named Cameron Cullen who's been carving Q Cup for years.
Yeah, he went to the Dolphins, I think, and I think he was at the Broncos for a little bit too.
Yep. So then Piercy was going to come. So he just left the Roosters, and it was between Knights and Manly to.
No way! I did not know. Did you know that? That Piercy was going to go to Manly.
Yeah. So
Piercy and Ches.
and obviously my head's fallen off because I'm going, I don't want him to come because then I'm going to be playing reserve grade for the next year. So I remember the day so clearly that obviously it was weeks that it was going on for where he was going to go and who he was going to choose. And I remember we were at the Hardboard Hilton having a beer.
Great spot, that.
Yep, very great. And I was in the toilet. And I remember I'm just at the cubicle. I look at my phone and it says Mitchell Pearce signed with Newcastle Knights. And I'm going, how good is this? So I've called me missus straight away and gone, it's me. Everyone else has fallen over. I'm the last bloke skating.
Yeah.
You know? It's
Bradbury.
Yeah. Yeah. So I remember that day clear as day, and that's just set the whole next 6 or 7 years of my life the way that they've gone.
Wow.
But it could have been so different. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, played the first 8 games of that year. Did an ACL. And then sort of back into the rehab. Didn't have a deal for the next year, which was obviously scary. But
Oh my God.
for what I've dealt with prior, it was just another
Bump in the road to a degree. So those first 8 games, like when you do, your debut definitely means a lot. But sometimes the journey back into first grade means even more. And even me specifically, a lot of people think that my favourite game would be against Parramatta Eels with the buzzer situation. But my favourite game is actually when I came back from the Warriors and I played first grade in round 1 for the Broncos, just because of the journey back sometimes is more important, just to prove to yourself that you can do it. What was it like for you when you got named to play for Manly in round 1?
Mine was the first. So the first round 1 game of my first year there was really special. And then obviously I didn't take it. I probably took the Canberra one for granted because of the progression I thought was going to happen afterwards.
Yep.
But then the Manly one was, more of I felt like more of a thank you to everyone that stuck with me and sort of got me to there again. But I think then my favourite game still to this day was off the back of my ACL coming back the year after that.
Okay.
I still got a photo with my missus after the game and I'm bawling my eyes out.
Yeah.
And gets me upset thinking about it now.
Yeah.
But the journey of that and all those people that looked after me during that time, and then it was against the Canberra. I scored 2 tries.
No way.
Yeah.
Debut back, scored 2 tries
Yeah.
against Canberra. Just isn't it weird how the world works, eh?
Yeah.
Like you went through so much pain to experience this moment that like not many, like 0.1% people get to experience. But yeah, take us back to the first game for Manly, and you said you played 8 games. How do you reckon you played in the 8 games?
Better than what it was in Canberra.
Yep.
But it still wasn't great, and still, even the next 2 years after that, I was not a good half by any means. I think I was just there because I just worked hard and I had a crack.
Yep.
Like looking at the halves now, and like I was nowhere near any of those halves.
Yeah, okay.
So we ended up playing Newcastle the first game against Piercy. He kicked the field goal to beat us. So Manly
Did you say thank you at the end of it?
I should have said thank you. Thanks, Piercy, if you listen to this. But and then played those first 8 games. I think round 2 we ended up beating Para. Might have been 60-something nil. So like the contrast of losing by 1 to then winning by 60, and then sort of feeling that maybe I sort of belong here in this environment. And then the next sort of 6 weeks was not great by any means. It was just sort of floundering around and finding my feet in the game, and the whole knee thing happened, and then being put back to sort of the back of the pack again was not humbling, because I felt like I was comfortable in who I was, and I wasn't bigger than I thought I was at that stage. It was just where I found myself.
And so the conversation with Manly to get you that extra year, I guess you would have felt quite grateful for them that they were like, you know what, yep, you've done your ACL, but we'll give you another year.
Yeah, they made me sweat on it. It didn't happen straight away, and prior to that, I ended up having conversations about having another year sort of put on me. So I felt like it was always a chance of happening.
Okay.
And then obviously once the knee thing happens, they said we'll just talk in a little while.
Yep.
My deal we ended up talking figures or whatever it was prior, and then towards the back end of that season, ended up getting downgraded to a development deal again, and sort of back to where I started, but better than nothing, right?
Yeah.
I was just sitting there, and the same thing. I'm going, if I get back, I'm not letting it go again. And I was just like going through my rehab at the time with a guy named Cameron Ferguson. He was our rehab guy at the time, and he put so much time and effort into me that he didn't have to do, that I just felt, I was just in such good hands the whole time, and I speak so highly of him. And then to train with Albert Hopewadi was also there, and he did a knee at the same time. So to have a group of guys that were going through the same thing at the same time made the whole thing so much more enjoyable when it's such a miserable time normally.
Yeah. And was this your third ACL?
Yep.
And so when were the two other ACLs?
Was at the back end of that season I debuted in Canberra.
Okay, yep.
And then my one before that was when I was 15.
You did your ACL when you're 15. Far out. That's, wow. So that's like basically by the time you're like 23-ish?
Yeah.
22?
22, yeah.
You'd had 3 ACLs. Wow, that's basically like 3 seasons essentially that, I mean, you look at that and you go, maybe that's a part of the reason why you felt you probably weren't developed as far as especially getting it at 15. That's like some of the most important years of your development. So you do so, but even when you do come back, you do your hamstring against Canterbury.
Yep.
Yeah, for 4 or 5 weeks. But then the next season in 2020, you played 20 games for Manly. And was this when you moved into the number 9 role?
I was floating between at this stage.
Okay.
So I would have played the majority of those off the bench at hooker. I think Danny Levi was there at the time, and he was our starting hooker.
Yep.
Walks ended up playing half.
Okay.
So he moved out of the centres to play half, and he was carving his gun footballer. So now I'm looking at the guys in front of me going, there's another bloke in front of me now.
Yeah.
And then I think towards the back end of that year, I knew that Danny wasn't going to be there next year. There was common knowledge that he was leaving, and Manase finally was there at the time, and all the stuff that went on with Nas, obviously a similar situation where everyone's falling over. I'm the only bloke skating. Yeah. I said, Desi, what are your thoughts on me playing hooker?
So you went to Desi.
We just had, the meeting at the end of the year, the review and all that sort of stuff. And he goes, how do you think you went? And obviously it wasn't lighting the world on fire by any means. And I just said, mate.
You're doing your job though, 20 games. Solid.
A lot of those games I'm playing 4 minutes a game. There's one game in Melbourne, we ended up playing extra time, 90 minutes. I sat on the bench the whole game.
Oh.
So it was definitely wasn't smooth sailing that year, but I was just stoked to be in and around it. Yeah. But obviously always wanted more.
Yeah.
And it just never happened the way it did. And then the thing with Nas and him ended up going inside, and it's me again. So and then
because Appy moved on to Penrith.
Just went to Penrith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so did you? I guess in your mind, like you'd played a little bit of hooker, but did you say, you know what, like they've got DCE. Who was the other half at this stage? Dylan Walker. And so were you like, I don't mind playing hooker. It's a much simpler, to a degree, role. And a lot of the tough stuff about hooker is just mental toughness and fitness. Did you put those things together in your head? Like, what was the thought process? Okay.
Not early, but later on I found that was what it sat really well with me. I think towards the back end of that 20 season, I still wanted to be a half.
Okay.
And I believed that I could have been a half. I think we ended up playing 3 games in a row. I might have played Warriors, Cronulla, and someone else at Sunny Coast, and we got thumped all of them. And at the end of that season, I remember sitting there going, maybe I'm just not a half.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe I can't do this.
Yeah.
And that's when the conversation with Desi happened about, maybe I'm better off utilise the team, like with the team here. And then, going into the next season and then finding that I was just so comfortable in myself leaving the field, knowing that I'd done everything I could to get a performance for the team to win. Whereas as a half, you have to score points, you have to set tries up, all that sort of stuff. And that made me so uncomfortable, kept me up at night. It was a nightmare.
Yep.
So then to move into a role where if I could walk off the field knowing I'd had a crack, that I was happy with my performance, then that put myself at ease 1,000 times over. I'm
just like, and it's maybe it's just an assumption, but I just think all the way back to when you first came into first grade got signed, and it was all about fitness. And it just seems like you're almost destined to play hooker. It seems like it suits your mentality more to go, you know what I will do? I'll go out and rip and tear. So I'll make my tackles and I'll miss as little as possible. And I'll work my ass off just to provide good service. And it sounds like that you enjoyed playing rugby league substantially more playing hooker than half. Is that correct?
Yeah. It's so much different how I leave a game then as to how I leave a game now. And I think how I was brought up was my old man was a tough old bastard. Never tough on me, but just a tough worker. He dropped out of school to be a shearer. Ended up going back to school to end up going into the cops. Just did everything the hard way. And then he'd be times he'd work overnight, do the full night shift in Mossvale, which is an hour and a half away, then drive back to our place, get his shearing gear, and then go shearing the next day. So there was, I was always brought up in a space where, work hard, you'll get what you deserve.
Hard working environment.
Get what you deserve, you know. So, once I figured out that was what that role looked like for me, and I've been so lucky with the team that I've had, like Ches, Fozzie at the time, Brooksy now, Turbo. Those guys score so many points, so they don't need me to be out there throwing shit out my ass. These guys can score points out of everywhere.
Just get the ball in their hands.
So I just need to find the right person at the right time, make my tackles, stand next to Jake, jump on his tackles. It's the best. It's the best job in the world.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. Hearing a hooker say it's the best job in the world makes me sick to my stomach. Tackling 45 times a game. When do you reckon was a time when it clicked for you? Go like, I'm actually pretty good at this. Like, it just fucking suits me. What do you reckon that was?
I don't know if there was ever a particular time. I remember going through the 21 season and still I sort of bought into a lot of the Fox Sports, what guys were saying and that sort of stuff. And a lot of the stuff people were saying were Manly can't be a good team in this competition until they get a proper hooker.
Yeah, okay.
So that was always sort of that was a chip on my shoulder for the whole time, sort of coming through the grades. And I think I found a time where that sort of started to die down a little bit, but I was never no one was ever patting me on the back or outside of the boys in my team. And that whole time I just felt so comfortable with how everyone felt with me that made me feel like I'm a part of this.
Yeah. Especially that 21 run.
Yeah.
Like, incredible.
Yeah. Well, all I did was make me tackles in that season. Like, we just passed the ball to Turbo and he's like...
sorry mate, were you gonna say? Yeah, I was going to say, as someone that was, reviewing the game each week, you're absolutely right. Like initially, even from our perspective, it was like, Croke's there, he's doing a solid job. See how he goes. And like as the year got along, the less we even spoke about it, and it was almost like instead of giving you the huge raps you deserve, it was almost like the fact that we aren't speaking about it is a massive compliment. Because that's how I recall it. Because we just weren't sure whether you could transition into the hooking role. How long do you reckon it took you to go, okay, well, I'm not getting the massive pats on the back, but they're actually not speaking about me, about the hooking role, therefore that's actually a compliment? Yeah,
it was towards the back end of 21.
Yeah.
And now that I think about it, there was a time, I missed the first semi with a low-grade hemi.
Yep.
And then we ended up playing Melbourne and got thumped at the Sunny Coast. And I ended up playing the next game against the Roosters, and it was you and Smithy on the show that you were doing at the time.
Yep.
And I think Smithy ended up saying they'll be happy to have him back.
Yeah.
And was one of the times when I go, I must be doing something.
Yeah, mate, the GOAT.
For the GOAT to be saying. To even know my name for starters. So that was one of the times where I thought I'm doing a good enough job here to keep my job.
Yeah, wow. What an incredible season that was. What was it like just to be a part of that? Like such a famous season. Like for Tommy Turbo just to go, the tries, like it was just... It's some of the craziest rugby league I've seen in my life.
Yeah.
What was it like to be a part of it?
Well, we started the year 0-4.
Oh, yeah.
We started the year 0-4.
Desi has notorious bad starts to season.
So Turbo didn't play the first month of footy, started 0-4. Round 5, we played the Warriors. We kicked a field goal at Central Coast to win in extra time, which unbelievable for us to be now 4-1. Go to Mudgee and play the Titans at Mudgee. Turbo comes back. I think the first 3 times he touches it, we scored 3 tries or something. Right. I remember walking back to halfway with Jakey and I go, I told you, mate, you'd fix it. So and then, mate, like leading into the back end of that year, some of the tries that, not just him, but our whole back 5 were scoring. Like Sabi had 26 or 27 tries. Gaz scored the most points in Manly history that year. Yeah, and that was me and Jakey were just standing halfway and just the boys would be running down the sideline and we go, how good's this?
No way. Yeah, like what a weird experience, like to be playing footy and just pouring points on. Like that's heaven. That's like literally it's heaven of rugby league.
Yep.
It's funny, we got obviously our podcast with Tom and Eddie, Hello Sport, massive Manly fans, and they used to talk shit about Tommy's worth 40 points. Yeah. So that year they were talking shit, and look, they'll pretend like they always knew, but it was just a joke, them saying that he's worth 40 points. But the week he came back, he's literally scored 40 points, and so they were like, he's like worth 40 points.
Correct. Yeah.
Oh, far out. So that season, so pretty much by the end of the season, you kind of really felt, I'm a first grader, and what I contribute is of value to the team. You felt valued, I guess.
Yep.
It's crazy because you know by that stage you'd already played like 60 games or something like that. Okay, so the next year, I guess the next year would have been even more on an individual level exciting for you because you could go into that off season and preseason going, I'm purely a hooker now. Like everything, all my training that I do is around that because I'm assuming before that would have been a bit of a mix. Yep. So what was that off season like for you, 21 into 22?
Yeah, that was, So then I started working with guys. We had Chad Randall with us at the time, who was an ex hooker for Manly. Michael Monaghan was another one. He was actually one of the guys that transitioned from half to end up playing hooker for Manly and captained the club. So those two guys that pre-season were still, I think I owe the majority of my career to those guys for the time, but not even just the time, but just the belief that I could do it. So having those guys talking to me like I'm a hooker and telling me what I should be doing like I was a normal hooker was I think the most respectful thing they could have done, and that was what sort of made me feel like this is where I go from now. But so those two guys, and obviously Desi off the back of that, made me feel so comfortable in what my role was. I was just, this is what I need from you and this is what you need to do. And then we can start working on the other stuff once we get this sorted.
And so 22 rolls around and a little bit of a, you missed the finals, but like it was weird because you had patches where you kind of, it looked like it was there again and it just wasn't. Obviously Tommy was out for, I think, all of the season.
Long time,
I guess what's it like? I know it would be frustrating hearing this from a Manly player perspective, but you would hear it all the time, like, you know, no Tommy, no Manly. Like that's the yarn. I guess what's it like hearing that kind of stuff? Because you guys work so hard to, you know, there's still a whole fucking team outside of Tommy.
It'd be wrong of me to say that that's completely wrong because he's like a freak of an athlete and we're exponentially better when we play. I don't know what the numbers are, but I've seen him so many times on watching replays of when he plays with us versus when he doesn't. But I think that we didn't do ourselves any favours with how we were defending that season. So it's like it's difficult to score points without your best player. Every team would say that. But
you lose Cleary or you lose Reece Walsh and
But we just weren't defending enough to give us a chance at even winning those games. So that was what really disappointed us. That you know we're not even giving ourselves a chance to win because we can't score 30 points. But if we're letting them score 30 points, how are we any chance of winning? You know.
And so that season, you don't make the finals, but again, you continue to play. You ended up playing 23 games that year, and you're getting close to the 100-game mark at this stage. So the year you played 100 games was 2023. So I guess like, you know, going from a couple of years ago going, shit, this could be all over, to playing 100 NRL games, like, you know, only 10% of players or something even smaller than that play 100 games. I guess like, what's that feeling like for you to be able to have achieved that?
Once I started thinking about it, would have been like 75 games in or something. I started seeing the other corner of my eye, and then I guess you just sort of think about the journey that you've been on and everyone that's been there with you. And mum and dad came up, my brothers came up to present me that jersey, and that is one of the most special days of my life, being able to stand there and, you know, hug my dad and my mum who've gone through everything with me and my partner as well. And I remember saying in that speech that if someone came to me after that one Raiders game 2 years later and said, I'll give you one more, but that's it, I would have taken it. Like to be able to get to 100 is just, you know, it's, even now, just thinking about it, it's crazy.
Oh, mate, like 120 games now. Okay, so 2020, you played 23 games. You missed the finals, and that's when the whole, 22 is when all the drama happens. Apologies. What was it? It would have been, I guess, bittersweet's the wrong word, but a bit tough because Desi's kind of, I know it was Trent that gave you the opportunity to come to Manly, but Desi was the one that kind of Would have been hard to see the back of Desi because he'd given you such an opportunity.
Yeah, I still love the bloke to death. He's it's done so much for my career, and just as a person, I really got along quite well with him, and a lot of the guys my age loved having him around, and to see once we sort of realised I remember we were talking about Desi might be leaving, you know, with the Jersey saga and all that sort of stuff, and I was might have been Turbo and Jake, and we saw the news, and it's the banner underneath said Des Hasler to sue Manly Sea Eagles. And we've all sat there and going, oh, he's not staying, is he? So realising that was happening, and now he's gone, and even in the back of my head I'm going, well, I got along so well with this bloke, the next coach that comes in, he might not like what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So then I've just gone like, how many more times can it happen where it doesn't
work out?
Thankfully, you know, speaking to Siebes leading up to that, and just finding out where we stood with each other that was probably another point in my career where I've gone, I must be doing something not too bad if there's an external guy coming into the club who's half liking what I'm doing.
Yeah. Okay. So did Siebes come in and say, mate, you know, I love what you're doing, just keep doing it? Like, what was the conversation like?
Yeah, pretty much like that. And obviously there's always the caveat at the end of it that we can always do this better, which you know, that's always sat fine with me. And so if you know, when you stop learning, you may as well give it away. So
when you stagnate, someone's going to come through, a young fella with those weapons that he's asked you to kind of work on.
Yep.
It's been actually like, even outside looking in, you've had quite a lot of talented hookers at Manly that you've kind of kept it at bay. I guess, is that just from purely hard work, do you think?
I think so, yeah. I think that going back to what you said before, like the friendship thing and guys trying to take positions and that sort of stuff, with the group that we've had at the club the last few years with Gordy and Carl Lawton, us three as a group have been just so like comfortable with each other and always willing to help each other, and I've never felt like, obviously they want to take my spot, but I've never felt like they hate me for playing there, and I've never hated them for wanting to take my spot. It's really refreshing. I've never sort of felt anything like that before, and they're just two really good people who are obviously going to miss Carlos, but Gordy next year and filling that role, whether it be event like taking my spot or filling the hooker role off the bench is, I love playing alongside him, and towards the back end of this year when we did get to play a few games together with some of the most exciting games I've been a part of, and he's a guy that just loves playing footy and loves being around people, and you know, just a kid that you want to be able to help because he asks so many questions and he listens to what you're saying, and I've been really lucky in that regard that I've had so many like wonderful people around me.
And what's it like? What do you reckon Ches does that makes him so great? Like what? And I know it's going to sting to give him a compliment, but what is it? It makes him so great. And also, just quietly, Tommy Talau, he called you the biggest pest in the Manly squad.
I knew he would have said that. He's actually a good fella, Tommy, despite what people think. But I think Ches obviously he looks after his body really well.
Yeah.
Because you obviously can't drive in a broken car. And he's the way that he looks after himself, and just knowing what he needs to do to get into a game and then to be able to finish the game like the case that he's doing in a game for a guy that age is
crazy.
Yeah. So that's obviously number one. But I think he's just so comfortable in his game and what he needs to do for us every weekend that he's done it 300 and something times. Like
mental.
Yeah, and he's just that calming influence over everyone, and nothing's ever rushed, and everything just feels like it's just methodical and well thought about. So, he's had a pretty big role on sort of my career football wise, but as a person, and I guess sort of learning off him as a leader the last few years, I've really seen he's put a lot of work into his leadership and doing workshops and all that sort of stuff. And I've really noticed the last few years that he's sort of not so much changed his role, but just really gotten comfortable in who he is as a person, which then obviously sort of transgresses down to his leadership stuff.
Yep. And what's it like playing with the big fella Olakau'atu? Mate, he is a problem, a serious problem, the big fella.
I remember telling him after the Bulldogs game, I said, "You're my favourite player, but don't tell Jake." He's he's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's so hard to put him, and he's so cool and calm, and nothing bothers him. And yeah, he's obviously a very scary man, but I love the bloke. I love playing alongside him. I think any big tackle that I'm involved in is him over the top and I'm underneath. So any tackle that I get credit for, look who's next to me. But I love playing alongside him, and he'd do anything for anyone in our team. And I got so much time for him. He's one of the real good ones.
Yep, and he he would have come to the club after you arrived.
Yeah, not long, but he was might have been floating in about the 20s when I got there. And he was the back rower that I was defending at the time.
Yeah.
So I'm well aware of what he can do and have been well aware for a long time.
Yeah. And because you would have seen him kind of develop, because he was a bit of a basketball player, wasn't he, growing up?
Yeah,
to a
something
degree?
like that.
So you would have seen him develop into the beast he is now,
Yeah,
going playing Origin and all that kind of stuff.
Even as a person and as a leader, the last 2 or 3 years, he's changed so much. And listening to him talk about footy, which is something that he never did as a young guy, like he just turned up and ran over blokes. But now he's talking about what he should be doing on this, like, and telling guys younger than him or guys next to him what he wants from them is something that, as a footballer and as a guy on his team, is just, fills you with confidence. And as I said, he's an absolute pleasure to play with.
Beast. And the great Tommy Turbo. I mean, he'll be like, obviously you don't say it while you're playing with him, but he's definitely a kind of player that, you'll say to your kid, like, yeah, I used to play with Tommy. Just like, when I get to fortunately say, I played with Darren Lockyer. And obviously when you're in the squad with them, they're your mates. Like, you don't see them as this, like, but when you get out of it, you kind of realise, like, fuck, I was lucky. Like, I was lucky to train with Shane Webke and Petro or whatever. And like, Tommy's one of those players as well. Like, what is it like playing with Tommy?
It's not going to do it justice of but I was thinking the same thing. Like, when you finish and you say to your kid, I played with this guy.
Yeah.
Like that 2021 season when he got Dally M off 3 games or whatever it was, and Gaz scored however many points he scored, and every accolade that all those individuals got, I remember just sitting back and going, this year will be one of the most special years of my life, looking at what these guys have done. And I've been sitting in the middle of the field watching them do it.
Yeah.
It was so special. And I think I've said it a few times, but the stuff that Turbo does in the weekend obviously surprises everyone. But we see it from Monday to Friday.
Wow.
Yes, and I've never met a guy that trains as hard and crosses every T, dots every I the way that Turbo does. And
wow.
So when you see the injuries and all that sort of stuff, it breaks your heart, because he's not someone that deserves to go through that, considering what he does off the field to make sure that it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So for the fact that it can still happen to a guy that does it like that, it's
just luck, really.
It breaks your heart.
Yeah. Even like, he doesn't play for 6 years in the Australian side, and then literally one of the first touches is inset for a try. Like, who does that? Yeah. Like, even the best of the best didn't used to, like, man, he's a gun. And also, like, one of the best parts about Tommy is, if you'd know better than anyone, but like, he is the most humble bloke in the history of mankind. Best bloke ever.
The other day I was saying I think it was Brad Parker, we were having a beer together, and I said, how much do you reckon the Treboks have shouted us over our career at Manly?
Really?
It would be I'm going to be 5 figures.
Really?
Yeah.
So they like, come on, they can't. That sounds like they're too perfect.
Oh, mate.
They shout the boys even.
Oh, early on, we go for dinner with them every 2 weeks or whatever it was. And it, like,
boom, got it, boys, got it. Jeez, that's good to hear. Because I tell you what, there's some blokes out there bloody tighter than a second coat of paint.
The amount of drinks they buy on a weekend when we go out and stuff is...
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that. Love to hear that. And for you, so how long, you're signed till 26? 26.
Yep.
And I guess, like, what is, you've made yourself a regular first grader now. You've played 120 games. What's the goal for you going forward?
I think the goal for anyone that hasn't won a comp is to win a comp. I'd love to be able to do that with the guys that we've got in this team. And obviously, it's always nice seeing Ches and Jake and Turbo and Schmoll play those rep games. But you've always, like, obviously, I'd love to play a rep game, but I'm well aware of what my capabilities are. And I think for me is to win a comp with those guys that you're talking about once you're 40 and 50. Yep. And I think outside of that, it's probably just being a guy that can help younger guys not get better at footy, but more feel comfortable in the environment that they're in. And I love stirring the younger guys and talking to the young guys. And as soon as they bag you once, then you know that we're on.
Yeah, so got them.
We're really lucky with the young guys we've got at the club and the playing group as a whole. I love being in the joint and being around everyone. And I think that enjoying that the next few years is probably the top of my list.
And what do you reckon, like, if there's a young woman or young guy listening, like, what would your kind of advice be to them if they're in a similar situation to you? They're, a guy that came through the grades, had a lot of raps about him, and maybe it's not working out for him. What is an advice you wish you had received?
I don't know if it would have... Obviously, early on, I would have been to obviously not expect things to happen perfectly. But I think, first of all, I'd say if you want to do it, it'll happen.
Yeah.
But then I'd say you got to be, once your opportunity happens and that door opens, you have to have done the work to be able to go through the door. the door may open, but you still have to be good enough to get into it and play the footy that you want to play. So I think that was, I always felt like behind closed doors, I was just having a crack as hard as I could. And if something happened, then I'd just jump in and see what happens.
Yeah.
But you got to be ready to jump through it.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest thing I reckon I regret is just patience, man. Just when if you're 19, 18 years old and you're like, oh, I haven't debuted yet, it doesn't matter. Like, and I ended up debuting at 19, and I look back and like, for example, some of the decisions I made in my career, if I had have just looked at it and gone, mate, you're 21 years old. If you have to go back and play to reserve grade, that's okay. Like, you've got a whole career ahead of you. But in my head, I'm thinking, nah, I should be playing for Queensland and, blah, blah, blah. And it's just, that impatient makes you make incorrect decisions for your career. And like, you're a perfect testament to patience and just keep working.
Through none of my own, I wish it wasn't like that. But the worst thing for me was looking at guys my age, like the guys I debuted against.
Yeah.
They've been playing first grade the whole season, been playing ever since. Like, they're all my age. Why am I not good enough to be doing it? And it ended up killing me. Yeah.
And we had just spoke to Tommy Talau. He was in the same situation, like watching guys that he used to play with, do all this crazy stuff. And, used to play against them and do well against them. But it's all about just focus on your own race. Everyone's different. Like, I'm sure there are some young halves that debuted at 18 that wish they had Cody Walker's career that debuted at 26. But your story is definitely one that a young fella can listen to, or a young lady coming through. Mate, I ask all the boys this. Favorite rapper of all time? You a rap man?
I'm an Eminem man.
Eminem?
Yeah,
okay.
I'm not into the new
stuff?
Nah.
Okay.
My mum bought me the CD Curtain Call. When
Curtain Call.
I was in year 5.
Your mum bought it for you?
She obviously didn't know what was going on, so I'm sitting in my room with a Walkman listening to the song Fack.
One of the classics.
Yeah, listening to it now, I go, what were you thinking? But I'm an Eminem man.
Oh, mate, yeah, he's the GOAT. He's the GOAT. Favourite movie of all time?
I love 22 Jump Street.
Yeah, okay, comedy.
Up there. I'm a comedy man. I think definitely the two.
My name is Jeff.
Yeah.
And I asked Tommy this, and he said you, but who's the biggest pest in the Manly squad? I've heard Tommy Turbo's an undercover pest.
Yeah, he is. But you can't go back at him.
Because he's Tommy Turbo.
Yeah.
What do you say to him?
Like, you have to let it go.
He literally said, mate, I'll get you sacked.
That's actually a joke going around, because last year Brownie took off Bennington Boxhead when we played him against the Roosters.
Oh, okay.
And then he came in to train and was throwing his weight around, and the boys go, mate, they'll get you sacked. You got to pull your head in, mate.
Who's the biggest pest though?
Oh, obviously, because Tommy said me, I'm going to have to say him, but there's so many. I listened to you talk a few years ago. Like, football clubs are so special. Where you turn up and you got a mad haircut, you're getting bagged for having a mad haircut.
Oh, mate,
you got a shit haircut, you're getting bagged for a shit haircut,
mate. You're dating the best looking chick in the whole entire world. You're getting shit put on you for it. It's just like, what? I don't understand. It is. That's one of the hardest journeys as a young fella. Is like just understanding that if they're not bagging you, then that's actually the problem. Whereas if they're bagging you, it's because they like you. They want you to, they're testing you. They want to see how you react. Mate, thanks so much for coming on, brother. I really do appreciate it. And what an incredible journey. What an incredible journey.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.